I will be running through with everyone. I know this session's about 45 minutes or so. So just please do bear with me for about 25 minutes whilst I share some information with you. And then for that later 10-15 minutes, it's really for us to really answer some of the queries that you have regarding portfolio admissions. Okay, so let me just kickstart. So these are some of the aspects which I will be including today. And I think for most of you over here, what would be really, really important is from the statement of intent all the way through to the common mistakes when it comes to portfolio submissions and the tips that we have for you regarding the portfolio submission. Okay, so for the portfolio submission, it is an online submission. It is not one whereby you bring in a physical portfolio. It is done via this PSS system, which you will get the link upon application. You will be submitting a statement of intent. This is about 250 to 300 words. You will also be submitting a portfolio, which consists of 10 to 15 pieces of your best works. And what we are really looking at when it comes to a portfolio, it's about creativity, passion, and curiosity. And I think really when we talk about a portfolio should be a reflection of your view of the world. And lastly, you will also be organized to attend an interview. Now, for the statement of intent, we do have some pointers for you when it comes to that. Now, we do understand sometimes it can be something that's very vague, you're not too sure what to write. So typically a statement of intent is one that outlines the motivation and reasoning for your choosing and undertaking design practice course here at NAFA. So we really want to hear, why you want to join this course. Some pointers that we have for you in writing a statement of intent. Please don't try to cram your whole life story or your whole career story in these 300 words. I think it's not going to be possible. Leave that life story or whole story for us during the interview, should you wish to. And as much as possible when it comes to a statement of intent, it is one that should be written relatively professionally when it comes to how you're writing it and the tone of writing. Don't use slangs or as much as possible short forms. I think something which we always talk about, and later on when we talk about the portfolio, we will also talk about editing. Always edit and proofread your text. So this would mean that, I shouldn't be typing my statement of intent directly into the submission portal, but maybe I might want to, now before even submitting my application, start writing up what is my statement of intent and take time. I think quite importantly is not to rush yourself to write it. Give yourself time to write it and re-edit it over and over again. Please, as much as possible as well, this is 300 words, which is about a paragraph or a bit more than a paragraph. There is not much that you're going to be able to write in it. What this also means is don't include too much details. And of course, don't stretch the truth. Now, the objective of having an interview at the end of submitting a statement of intent and submitting a portfolio is so that we can actually better understand you as well. So it's not going to be helpful to stretch the truth. And the other thing is, I think it's quite important for us to reiterate as well, please don't plagiarize. Plagiarize meaning maybe I go online and start searching of top examples of statements of intent. This is not what we're looking for. What we're really looking for is to better understand you, why you choose this course, and how is it we are better able to help you if you are selected into this course. Now, a portfolio. Typically, we talk about a portfolio as a collection of works. Now, over here, I'm going to go through in a bit of detail, what portfolio is, what we hope to look for and look at, as well as some examples of the things that you are able to put in. So we want to see really what inspires you. This really can be about showing us your sketches, a video that you have taken the last time you took you had a holiday, and even if it's an edited video or a graphical work, a sketch that you've done. how you approach your work, and this typically it's via submission of a collation of processes or the development or your perspective and how you undertook research, your thought processes, what you've done, what you've created, which I'll give you some examples later to guide you along. And I think really at the end of the day, what makes you unique? We are really looking at, if let's say for example you have done a flea market, for example, and you were doing up some jewelry pieces, you were doing up some craft work or Christmas cards that you were selling during a flea market. Show us these images. Now, whilst the BA design practice is one that is interdisciplinary, we are really open to seeing portfolios that may focus on, if let's say for example, you are from a diploma background, you may have a specialism or a particular creative discipline, you can do that. However, in saying this, we are also looking at portfolios that showcases a multidisciplinary practice. Now, this may include things such as entrepreneurial spirit, which I've mentioned earlier regarding, let's say, opening up a shop at flea market, or even having a web store or an Instagram store. Collaborative work that you have done, whether or not it's at A levels, year 12, at diploma work, social entrepreneurship. On this, I would also like to highlight, if you are including works that you have done, especially for those of you who are doing an internship, who have completed an internship at diploma level, or you have done your own individual internships, you have to speak to your company or the company that you did your internship with to ask for an approval to use that as part of the portfolio. So within a portfolio, I would like to talk about what you can actually include. Now, within a portfolio, you should really aim to include a range of works that shows the breadth of the skills and interests that you have. Again, I would like to reiterate, please only include works that you are able to talk about. Saying this because typically when it comes to an interview process, we might bring up some of the works that you have submitted within the portfolio to have a chat about. Now, I would like to take the opportunity to highlight that specifically for applicants into the degree year 2, which typically would mean that you have completed a diploma. We are not looking just for the success stories, but how is it you have demonstrated your work processes, your motivations, and your learning, and really whether or not you have begun to develop your own identity through your practice as a designer or creative. And really to break this down, it is not just to show us the final outcomes of the works that you have produced. So this would mean, let's say, for example, when you are submitting works for the portfolio, do share with us the research and the developmental process that leads up to the final outcome. For students who have completed relevant diplomas, ideally, and this is just typically, you would at least include 2 to 3 projects whereby you'll talk us through all the way from the initial brief or the idea given to you, all the way through to the resolution. Okay, I'm going to cover quite quickly some visuals that hopefully is able to guide you a little bit along to what are some of the things that we're looking at when it comes to a portfolio. So when it comes to sketches and drawings, now these can be things that are done within the context of classes in school or even on your own accord. It can even include things such as landscape drawings, observational drawings. Those of you who have done still life, these are things that you can include. Collaging works that you have done. I think this is something that's quite common as well. If you have done any kind of craft work or product work, for example, ceramic work, clay work, or even things that you've submitted for competitions, These are things that you can include. Talking about competitions, this is also something which is of interest to us. Do include, if you have participated in competitions, works that you have included. Whether or not you have won or you didn't win a competition, it really doesn't matter, but do mention it in the image that you have submitted. So let's say, for example, maybe this two fans was submitted for a national art competition. Although you didn't win it, do include it into your portfolio to tell us that, this is maybe something that was done out of the curriculum and you did these two fans to submit for the competition which year. Things that you have done or you have made, I think this is where also writing down or in submitting the images, you have to tell us what it is. So I will go through in a bit of detail a little bit later on, but I'll just introduce. Now, let's say hypothetically, this wooden basket that was done with the fruits over there. Let's say it's part of design and a D&T project or a project that I've done in school, and it required me to use laser cutting machines and to design this cut together with the fruits over there to teach primary school kids how to count their vegetables and the fruits, for example. Write that as a description to tell us what it is about. Sean, thank you for raising your hands, but maybe you will address the questions later on. I'll just go through the deck first. Okay, so tell us, number one, the title of the work, which year it was done. Tell us also, if it's possible, tell us the material that is being made, and give us a one-liner on what it's about. Okay? Things such as photography, whether or not it is a staged photography, or it is a photography of an event or an exhibition. Again, please do mention, okay, this is a digital photography done in the year 2019, and it was to document a particular event, for example, or it's your observation of a particular event. If you have done any client or professional work, this is also your opportunity to include it in. Now, when we talk about client and professional work at year 12, A-level, or even at diploma level, it can even include things that you have done for your friends that they've used professionally. Or even this, for example, whereby students participated with Takashimaya for RIA. Any kind of craft work you can also include into the portfolio, but again, please do write in the description what it is, what it's about, and the year it was done. I know many of you have iPads and are familiar with digital art or sketches. These are also things we're looking out for. Okay, now earlier in my sharing, I've mentioned about including a breadth of things to include into the portfolio. Now, as much as possible, if let's say, for example, I'm exceptionally good in sketching, but don't just show me sketches. As much as possible, do try to include a variety. And these are just some suggestions that you can include. So models can be handmade models, three-dimensional work, prototypes, material experiments. This is something that is really, really important, experimentation and development, because it shows us from the assessor's perspective what your interests are and how do you look at, or what's your perspective on development. Sculptures, paintings, drawing, sketches in variety of mediums. If you have graphical work, illustration work, typography work, both digitally and in physical forms, advertising, branding work, creative writing even, photography, videography, animation, moving image, professional work, entrepreneurial work, project work, and really anything else that you feel demonstrates your creative abilities and your motivations. I would like to also take the opportunity to highlight if there is any work that you have done within groups. So let's say, for example, for those of you who are from A-levels, In Singapore here, there is a module called project work, and typically it's done within a small group of classmates. If you're submitting your project work, for example, this is where you will have to mention, and you should mention, who are the different other members in your groups and what is your contribution to the project. Okay, over here, I would just like to highlight a couple of details. As much as possible, in as much as the software that we use for our portfolio submission allows alternative different image formats, whether it's PNG, TIFF files, I highly encourage applicants to submit it in JPEG format and 72 DPI. Reason being, it's when you do it this way, it ensures that the images are flat, and when we as assessors view it on the screen, it is very easily refreshed. Sometimes when a file is too huge, what happens is that it's very difficult to view on the screen. Of course, also because typically our screen sizes vary, but keeping it to 800 pixels on the longer side would be more than sufficient. So for those of you who are familiar with Photoshop or any other image editing software, you can do so. If not, you can also download this free software called GIMP, GIMP.org. Now, I've mentioned earlier about naming of each of the works that you are submitting. Now, this is exceptionally important because what happens is it gives us the context of what the image is about. General rule of thumb, you have to, within this title of the work, give us, apart from the title, the year or the date that the work was done, and give us a short description. Even if, let's say, for example, it is a still life of a basket of fruits on the table, tell us, describe what's the material that we used. Was it charcoal on paper? Was it ink on canvas? Was it acrylic paint? What size was the canvas? These description help us better understand what we're looking at. Okay, and if it's a work that is done out of the classroom, I think it is helpful when you mention such things as well. Okay, for those of you who are submitting things that is animated, or if it's a video or the moving image, you can also upload it onto Vimeo and YouTube. I would just like to highlight that if you are using Vimeo or YouTube as the link, number one, we are going to double check that the work is yours. Secondly, it's do ensure that we are able to access the video without having to type in or key in a password. Okay, these two common mistakes are the biggest common mistakes that we often see when it comes to a portfolio submission. Primarily, number one, above it all, it's about not editing your portfolio submission. What we mean when we say not editing a portfolio submission, it's really about, I'm just going to select based on the image files that I have, 15 images, and then I'll just click, I'll submit. That shouldn't be the way a portfolio submission is done. One of the things that I think year after year, a lot of applicants and even parents are very worried about, it's about the aspect on quantity over the quality of the works that is being submitted. We request for 10, 15 images, 10, 15 works. And a lot of parents say, but if I get 10 works, if I submit 10 works only, will I be assessed less than a student who submits 15 works? Can I submit a PDF that has 100 images inside? I think when it comes to a portfolio submission, we just want to reiterate and to reassure everybody over here, the quality of the work that is submitted is so much more important than the quantity. Please do focus on the quality of the works that you have. One of the things which sometimes when I consult students when it comes to portfolio, what I do is, if you have 5 different still lives that you are interested in submitting, I would then recommend maybe you choose only 1 or 2. The 1 or 2 best still lives that you have that has the most interesting story and you're able to write the most about, choose that 2. You don't need to choose all 5. Now, the other thing which we quite often see as well, it's when applicants submit very, very poor photographs of your work. Now, we do understand sometimes, it's not possible, there are works that are A0, A1 size. You can't scan the work. And even if you do have a scanner, it's too small. So we're not expecting you to take to get a scanner, but very simple editing of photographs is possible. For example, these two images, I did a super quick and it was only a 5-second edit. To number one, crop off the corners. Number two, I tried to increase, the photograph wasn't taken the best to begin with, but I adjusted the image a little bit so that I can see the contrast a bit better. One of the things that we tell our students to document how you can actually take photo of these images. Okay, if it's a 2-dimensional image, you can always blue tag the photograph or the drawing on the wall and take photograph of it with natural daylight if it's possible. If it's not possible, you can always turn on all your lights in the room and ensure there's nothing obstructing, and take a photo during the day. Try not to take photo at night. I know many of you here are night owls, but taking a photo at night, what happens is that the lighting, it's a bit off. It can get a bit off, can get a bit overly yellow. So it's very difficult to edit. So this is an example of an image that it's not very best photographed, but at least edited. Now, I've mentioned also already about not having a scanner. So using mobile phones is okay, but please ensure that there's no shadows. So one of the reasons why I've mentioned earlier about pasting your works on the wall is because when you have a sketchbook and you take photo using your mobile phone this way, like that, right? You're going to be able to see shadows. So even if you use flash, you're going to be able to see some sort of shadow or another on the image. I've mentioned about editing your photographs so that the edges are cropped and that there's good lighting. The images should not be skewed or distorted. If you are looking at taking photograph of 3-dimensional objects, let's say I've made some sculptures, I've made some prototypes and models, my best advice to you is go out under the sun in the morning or in the late afternoon when go out into the sun when the sun is not too bright, but there is daylight, and take photo of your works. The sun is your best friend if you don't have a professional photography studio. Okay, now these are just some tips that I have for you. Many of them, if you notice, I'm repeating over and over again because these are things that interest us when it comes to a portfolio. Show us your range. Include pieces of your works that have different materials, different themes, different techniques. And really, again, the reiteration about process over perfection. Even if you have works that are incomplete and there is a story to tell, or the research and development of the works were very, very good and was important to you, this is where you can write it down in the notes together with the image. The next thing is to have a strong narrative. So if earlier I did mention about this aspect on editing your portfolio. Editing the portfolio, it's not just within the images itself. So you have 10 to 15 images. One of the other things when it comes to curating a portfolio, and this is a hint for those of you, apart from the online portfolio, similarly to a physical portfolio, you want to be able to create and tell a story. So the image that you chose in front, the image that you choose at the back is exceptionally important. It's really part of storytelling, whereby you want to start and end on with a bang, so that you create this lasting impression. You don't want to start off super high and then end up low. So I don't think that's the objective. The next thing is, I've mentioned earlier about that 50 words, right? So these are what we call labels. And I cannot reiterate how important these few short sentences are. Because really, apart from telling us when it's done, what material it is, giving it a title, it really gives us an insight into what your processes, what your visions are, and what your inspirations are as a person. I've mentioned about this, but I reiterate, the minimum that you should have within these titles or labels is number one, give it a title, you should have, the very basic one. Of course, give it a short description, maximum 50 words of what the work is about. Now, I'm ending off my slides really soon already, so just bear with me in a short while. Now, really about taking control of your portfolio. This is your portfolio. It is not my portfolio. And if it's your portfolio, it also means what you're uploading is yours. You need to take control and to decide what you're uploading. I think one of the things that I mentioned very much earlier in this sharing is about if you're not able to explain something, don't put it into the portfolio. Okay? And how you edit this portfolio, and this is really part of taking control, how you edit this portfolio shows us your ability to work on a brief. If you can imagine this whole portfolio submission being as a brief, to select 10 to 15 works, images, crafting out the text, talking about it is a brief. And this is a key skill for all design creatives.